Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the final round of the Florida High School Mock Trial Championships. And before we get started, I want to thank some people, and I want the folks here to thank everyone. First of all, a couple of people from the Florida Law Related Education Association staff. Of course, the two hardest working women that are so involved in this process. And please give a big hand to, first of all, Annette Boyd-Pitts, the Executive Director. And Erin, where she is. We all know that we cannot do this if it were not for them. Also, we have the president of the FLREA, Noel Lawrence, who's also serving on the jury today. And the board members, Juan Lopez Campillo, is also serving on the jury over there. There's a couple other people that we need to thank that we can't do this without. First of all, a round of applause for all of the competitors, all the students. And then two final groups that are just as important, and certainly we couldn't do without them. And that's, first of all, the teachers and coaches. And then finally, to the parents, because you guys are integrally important. Obviously, without you, there wouldn't be the students. But also, we know how much you have to work in making sure, and you should be proud of these very special kids. And I say kids because I'm 55. It's not an insult. It's just the truth. Your kids to me. There's a lot of things that we see nowadays in divisiveness and politics in Washington. And at times you wonder, are we going to be able to make it through? Anyone that comes to this competition and sees these young people do what they do, you can have complete and absolute faith. This is our future is safe. And I want to thank you guys for that. So thank you. Okay, let's get down to business. Now, we should have teams P and C, is that correct? All right. Anything I need to take up before we get started? To the stage?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to enter our appearances for the record.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Tiffany Pages-Sanchez, and today I'll be conducting the direct examination of Dr. Sean Reed, the cross-examination of Dr. Tristan Martinez, as well as delivering the closing argument in this case.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Jordan Allen, and today I will be conducting the direct examination of Ashley Davis, as well as the cross-examination. I apologize, the direct examination of Jordan Miller, as well as the cross-examination of Ashley Davis.
Afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Nick Sweets, and today I will be delivering the opening statements. I will also be conducting the direct examination of Sergeant Riley Johnson, as well as the cross-examination of Ms. Hunter Wilson.
And permission for our witnesses to briefly introduce themselves.
Certainly.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Members of the jury. My name is Dr. Sean Reed.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Sergeant Riley Johnson.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and members of the jury. My name is Jordan Miller.
All right. Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. After the defense enters their appearances for the record, we have a few housekeeping matters we'd like to address.
Okay. Defense.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. I'm Tyler Lynch. I will be providing the closing argument. The director, Dr. Tristan Martinez, and the cross of Sergeant Riley Johnson. And this is my co-counsel.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Grace Evangelista, and I will be providing the direct examination of Ashley Davis and the cross-examination of Dr. Sean Reed.
Your Honor, members of the jury, counsel, my name is Sam Fisher. I'll be counsel for the defense today, delivering the opening statement, the direct examination of Hunter Wilson, the cross-examination of Jordan Miller. And now our witnesses.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Alexandra Sexton, and I will be portraying Hunter Wilson.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Stephanie Sutton, and I'll be portraying the role of Dr. Tristan Martinez. Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is
All right, thank you.
Permission to approach with the roster sheet.
Sure. If you can get to me.
Permission to approach the jury.
Sure. Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor, this time the prosecution has three housekeeping matters.
Okay.
Now, we've prepared a series of documents for Your Honor as well as members of the jury. First, we have a roster which contains the names and roles of all the participants on the prosecution side. Second, we've created an exhibit list for Your Honor to track as exhibits are entered into evidence. And lastly, we've compiled a series of documents in this case, including stipulations, information, witness lists, applicable statutes, and jury instruction for ease of reference of Your Honor as well as the members of the jury. Permission to approach with the acknowledged document.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to move freely without well throughout the course of the trial.
Sure. No problem.
And lastly, Your Honor, as exhibits are entered into evidence, would you like them to retain their pre-marked letter, or would you like them to transfer as numbers?
They will become numbers.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution is proceed.
All right, and just one thing to keep in mind, if you are moving around, because this room, the acoustics are bad, the farther you get from the microphones, the less likely you are to be picked up, okay?
Your Honor, we would like to ask for water, for permission for water at the council table since it is a long trial.
Just don't spill it.
Are we like for the court to invoke a constructive rule of sequestration for everyone in today's trial except for the defendant and the two expert witnesses?
That's fine. We'll do.
Are we to assume all objection vows are made in a constructive sidebar, or should we approach?
Do not approach.
And Your Honor, as far as going to publish exhibits to the jury, they have been given a packet with every exhibit in it. Should we still publish them with the single papers, or should we just direct them to the page?
Whichever way you want to do it.
At this time, the defense is ready to proceed.
All right. State, you wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
It's been said that it is all fun and games until someone gets hurt. Well, in this case, a 21-year-old honor student was killed. She was killed because of the defendant's deadly game. She was killed during the college hazing incident. That's not fun. It's not a game. That's a crime. And that is why the defendant is charged with manslaughter and hazing in today's case. Members of the jury, let me take it back to last year. It's late August, it's late at night, and a sheriff's vehicle is pulling up to a house. Two sheriffs get out, walk across the front lawn, and approach the front door. Members of the jury, what's about to happen? It's similar to the phone call that no parent ever wants to receive. It's the knock that every parent dreads. Door swings open. Mr. and Mrs. Young, we are so sorry to inform you. It's your daughter, that Emily is dead. Now, how did we get here? The evidence will show you that just last year, Emily was a student at Gulf Breeze University. She was a student at the same time that sorority and fraternity pledging was in full swing. Now, you'll hear that being a member of Delta Omicron Delta, DOD for short, it's important if you want to be competitive for grad schools or jobs after college. But the DoD is not a sorority, and it's not a fraternity. It's a co-ed honor society. And the only official requirement for membership is a certain grade point average. But the DoD wanted to pretend like they were a traditional sorority or a traditional fraternity. They did this by putting their pledges through their version of Hell Week. Emily had the high GPA. Now all she had to do was survive Hell Week. She didn't. She didn't because of the defendant's deadly game. Now the two criminal charges in today's case are manslaughter and hazing. And as the prosecution, it is our job to prove those two counts to you beyond a reasonable doubt. We will do so by going to the stand to testify Sergeant Riley Johnson, the investigating police officer, Jordan Miller, the DoD president, and the medical examiner who determined that Emily died of an allergic reaction to peanuts that the defendant knowingly exposed her to. For manslaughter, we will prove to you that the defendant's reckless actions and blatant disregard for Emily's safety, well-being, and ultimately her life caused her death. The evidence will show you that the defendant set up a game. It was called Fearsome 5, where Emily and about 6 to 8 other pledges all crowded around one side of a very small table. And they would have to answer trivia questions. And for every one that they got wrong, they would have to eat a mustard-covered, peanut-filled brownie, go away from the table, do a burpee, and return to their same spot. And just prior to that, they were forced to eat cat food, dog food, food that was not fit for human consumption. And what's more, the defendant had them blindfolded. That is how Emily unknowingly and involuntarily ate the peanuts. Well, she starts to have an allergic reaction. And as she's coughing, and as she's wheezing, and as she's headed to the DoD house to get her medication, the defendant, always a stickler for the rules, denies her injury. Emily later collapsed and died. The second charge is hazing, and you'll hear about how the defendant said herself, "We say the activities are voluntary, but I've never seen a pledge opt out and yet initiate." Members of the jury, it is not voluntary if you are afraid to say no. Yes, it is all fun and games until someone gets hurt. But here, in this case, based upon the evidence, it was a crime. Find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defense wishes to give an opening statement.
If it pleases the court, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Members of the jury, you're going to see that just because there was a death does not mean there was a crime. My name is Sam Fisher. My co-counsel and I are here today on behalf of that young lady, Hunter Olson. And we're here today to introduce you to her. We're here today to show you that her actions were anything but criminal, and that this was nothing more than a tragic accident. Now, you just heard that the prosecution intends to call 3 witnesses to prove their case today. You heard they intend to call Officer Riley Johnson to the stand. Members of the jury, the evidence will show that Officer Johnson did not properly secure the scene at the Delta Omicron Delta house. Now, you're also going to see that Officer Riley Johnson has reason for a clear bias against Delta Omicron Delta in Gulf Breeze University. You also heard they intend to call Sean Reed to the stand, Dr. Sean Reed to the stand. What the evidence is going to show is that Dr. Reed has only been practicing for 2 years. You also heard they intend to call Jordan Miller to the stand. Members of the jury, you're going to hear Jordan Miller is testifying in exchange for criminal immunity in this case. And you alone will decide the credibility of the witnesses you hear from today. But after the state has rested their case, you have an opportunity to hear from our own witnesses. We intend to call Dr. Tristan Martinez to the stand, a very qualified expert, someone that has been practicing medicine for 15 years now. And what Dr. Martinez is going to tell you about is some crucial errors that Dr. Reed made in diagnosing the cause of death in this case. Members of the jury, you're going to hear that Emily Young also had asthma, and that her asthma was not properly being controlled. controlled at the time of her death. Members of the jury, we also intend to call Ashton Davis to the stand. And what Ms. Davis is going to tell you about is the fact that other witnesses will reiterate. You're going to hear that you don't have to participate in a single one of these Pledge Week activities to become a member of this society. You see, Ms. Davis opted out of every single Pledge Week activity and other events and socials and things like that, and still received full membership status of the organization. Now, we also intend to call Hunter Wilson to the stand. Hunter Wilson is going to tell you that she knew Emily Young before she ever sought initiation into Delta Omicron Delta. You're going to hear that Hunter Wilson was protective over Emily Young and did what she could to keep Emily safe before she ever came to Delta Omicron Delta. And in regards to the fearsome 5 game, you're going to hear that Hunter Wilson knew about Emily Young's peanut allergy. You're going to hear that Hunter Wilson took precautions to keep Emily safe, like making Emily Young a separate plate of brownies just so she could participate, putting them on a specially marked plate to ensure that Emily was safe. Members of the jury, you also heard that the prosecution alone holds the burden of proof in this case. It's a very high burden, beyond all reasonable doubt. Through evidence and testimony today, you're going to see this case is chock full of doubt. You're going to see there's doubt as to whether or not this investigation was conducted properly. You're going to see that there's doubt as to whether or not Emily Young even died from the peanuts she ingested. You're going to see there's doubt as to whether or not Emily Young was forced to consume any foods or do any physical activity. Throughout the trial today, there will be no doubt that Hunter Wilson did all she could to keep Emily Young safe. At the end of the trial today, my co-counsel will have the opportunity to review the evidence with you. We're confident that you will find justice for the defendant and find Hunter Wilson not guilty on both counts. You'll see that just because there was a death does not mean there was a crime. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. First witness, please state.
The state calls Jordan Miller to the stand.
Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Miller. That's M-I-L-L-E-R.
How old are you this time?
Well, I'm currently 23 years old.
Are you enrolled in school anywhere?
Yes, I attend Gulf Breeze University.
At Gulf Breeze University, are you in a part of any honor societies or organizations?
Well, I'm pretty involved at Gulf Breeze. In fact, my most prominent position is that I'm the chapter president of the Chi-C chapter at Delta Omicron Delta Honor Society, otherwise known as DoD.
Now, to specifically draw your attention to DoD for a second, how long have you been part of this organization?
Well, I've been a part of DoD for 3 years now.
Are there any requirements to get involved?
Well, we have 2 official requirements. Other than being involved in the community, we make sure that all our members have a very high GPA. In fact, I do have a 4.0 myself.
Moving to the official and unofficial requirements in DoD. Now I'm going to talk to you about Hunter Wilson. Do you know Hunter?
Yes, I do.
Do you see Hunter here today in court?
I do.
Can you please identify him or her with the article of clothing that they are wearing?
Of course. She seems to be wearing a black top sitting over there.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect that this witness is properly identified as defendant Hunter Wilson.
All right, record will so reflect.
How old do you know him?
Well, I knew Hunter extremely well. I mean, we both joined DoD at the same time 3 years ago, and we learned the ropes of the organization from Chief Young.
Did Hunter ever hold any leadership positions within DoD?
Yes, Hunter was the pledge master in the past in the Honor Society.
And what type of activities does the pledge master coordinate?
Well, the pledge master, as the name indicates, is in charge of all the pledges. That includes all the activities that the pledges participate in, like the Pledge Olympics and even the Fearsome 5 game.
Now, I'll specifically talk to you about these pledge Olympics. Are they governed by a set of rules?
Yes, we have two simple rules, and that's that these pledges cannot have their cell phones on them, and that they can't enter the DOD house.
And are these Olympics mandatory?
Well, you see, it's a pretty tricky question. Very few pledges are ever made official members if they do decide to opt out of these activities.
Now, did you work with Hunter in reviewing these games this past year?
Yes, I did.
And based on your personal observations, what was Hunter's attitude towards pledging?
Well, I'd say Hunter was very passionate about the whole process, and she really seemed fixated on pushing these pledges further than we had ever had in the past.
Now, next I want to talk to you about the logistics of the Pledge Olympics and how they're ran. Who takes part in these Olympics?
Well, we pledges do.
Or is there any documentation that these pledges have to fill out in order to participate?
Yes, there are.
What type of documents?
Well, there's a medical form.
Would you recognize this medical form if I showed it to you today?
I would.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect that I am now showing the opposing counsel what has previously been marked as an exhibit. Permission to approach this witness?
You may.
Do you recognize this document?
I did?
Was this document filled at or around the time of Emily Young's death?
Yes, it was.
What type of people fill out this document?
Well, the pledge master, in addition to the pledge.
Is this document kept in the regularly conducted business of DoD activity?
Yes, it is.
And as DoD president, was this document kept in your care, custody, and control?
Of course.
Your Honor, I'd now like to enter into evidence what has previously been marked as Exhibit G as Prosecution Exhibit 1.
Defense? Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
That will be accepted as states 1.
Can you please read the section of the document that's entitled Medical Impairments as well as History?
Of course, it states, please note any prior injuries, allergies, or medical history that would preclude you from participating in DoD activities.
And what type of information goes into this section of the document?
Well, as it says, any medical history that the pledges may have that they would like to inform the officers of.
Now, I'm going to draw your attention to this form specifically. What medical conditions did Emily Young state she had?
Well, she noted that she had a nut allergy and asthma.
Now, I want to draw your attention to the bottom of this document. What do you see?
I see the signature of the participant, who was Emily Young, and I also see the signature of the witness, or the pledge master, and in this case, Hunter Wilson.
And who holds these documents within the agreement?
The pledge master, ma'am.
Have you ever held this position in the past?
I have.
And in using these documents, how did this alter the way that you conducted DoD activities?
Well, I would make sure that I didn't incorporate anything that would harm these pledges.
Object, Your Honor. It's unfair extrapolation of the facts.
Response?
Your Honor, an unfair extrapolation is one that is unfair, and second, one that materially alters the facts. We are laying the foundation that this witness has held the pledge master position in the past. Therefore, she would have knowledge to how she conducted the games based on these forms. Further, Your Honor, this is a matter that can be taken out on the cross. That is better taken out on the cross.
Your Honor, if I may be heard, I'm not objecting to the fact that this witness may have ran the pledge games differently. I'm objecting to the interpretation of the document.
What do you point to that you think is fair? In other words, what part of her statement do you think would allow her to say that?
In the past, she has held the position of pledge master. Therefore, she has knowledge to how she would have altered the games based on these forms. We're specifically talking about the medical impairments as well as history section of the document.
But what about her statement would lead you to believe that she would be able to testify to changing the games?
I'm asking if these documents allowed her to alter the games in the past.
All right. Overruled.
And when you reviewed these documents, how did you alter the DoD activities?
Well, I would make sure anything that I did didn't impair any of these pledges, depending on what they listed under this medical history and impairment section.
Now, next I want to talk to you about the Pledge Olympics and how they're conducted. Are you familiar with the Fearsome 5 game?
Of course I am.
Can you please explain this game to the members of the jury?
Well, this game works this way. All the pledges line up on the field. They're then all blindfolded.
I'm sorry, if I can stop you for a second, Ms. Miller. What type of blindfolds are these?
Well, these blindfolds are purposely made so that these pledges can't see. They're just pushed into the dark.
And so after these pledges are blindfolded, where do they go next?
Well, once they're blindfolded, they have to scramble, find their way to a designated table. And once they get to this table,
Your Honor, again, unfair extrapolation. Nowhere in the case package is it mentioned that pledges have to scramble to find a table, especially in this witness statement. This is an unfair extrapolation.
Response?
Your Honor, like I stated earlier, unfair extrapolation is one, that's unfair, and B, that cannot be reasonably inferred in the case packet. This witness has conducted the Fearsome 5 games in the past, and we are merely using this to establish how the Fearsome 5 games are usually conducted in order to show a reckless manner on how Hunter Wilson altered the games.
So is there anything in particular that you would point to in Ms. Wilson's statement that's provided as part of the packet to indicate her ability to testify to this?
Yes, Your Honor, she is the past pledge master and states that she has conducted these games in the past, therefore she would have knowledge.
Anything else?
Your Honor, I'm not contesting that fact. I'm contesting the fact that this witness has not provided in this statement how the games were ran in the past. It is unfair to extrapolate how they were ran in the past if it is not provided in the materials.
All right. Well, overall.
So what happens when the pledges make it to this table?
well, once they make it to this table, they're asked a very difficult question that was crafted and designed to make sure that these pledges would answer them wrong, so they could continue this Fearsome 5 game.
So I want to break this down piece by piece. If a pledge gets the question correct, what happens?
I mean, if the pledge gets it correct, these pledges barely get these questions correct. I mean, as I said, they were crafted and designed to make sure that the pledges got it wrong.
I'm sorry, so let me change my question. If a pledge gets the question incorrect, what happens?
Well, that's when they have to perform the physical activity.
And do they eat any foods before they perform this activity?
They do. Before being able to digest, before being able to perform the physical activity, they have to stuff and just basically put anything they can into their mouth before, and then they have to try to digest the food before doing the physical activity.
And where are they going to do this physical activity? Do they do it at the table?
Well, no, they have to take a step back. If they did the physical activity at the table, they'd surely bang their head into the table.
And at this time, while the pledge is taking a step back, are they still blindfolded?
Yes, ma'am, they can't see the entire time.
And what type of physical activity is this?
Well, a burpee.
Can you describe a burpee for us today?
Well, I believe I can demonstrate a burpee better than I can describe it.
Your Honor, permission for this witness to step down to aid the trier of fact to better understand how a proper DOD burpee is conducted.
Sure, she wants to subject herself to it. Sure, step on. Be careful. Don't hurt yourself.
So once these pledges step back from the table, what do they do next?
So they're at the table, they're stuffing as much food as they can into their mouth. They take a step back quickly after. They haven't digested the food yet. They take a big jump, they get to the floor, they go down, they do a push-up, get back up, then do a jumping jack.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect that this witness has jumped up, done a push-up, and a jumping jack again. Is that an accurate representation?
That is.
Thank you.
The record
Permission for
will
this
reflect that. Thank you for describing it, so I didn't have to.
Permission for this witness to return to the chair, please.
You can. Return, Ms. Wilson.
So how many physical activities does a pledge conduct after eating this food?
Well, it really depends on how many questions the pledge gets wrong and how many burpee numbers they're being shouted at.
So after they do this burpee, what do they do next?
Well, after they do the burpee, they repeat the Fearsome 5 process.
So do they ever come back to the table?
Yes, they do, and they're blindfolded the entire time. They can't really see what table they have to make it back to.
I'm sorry if I may ask, throughout the duration of this Fearsome 5 game, are they ever guided by a member of you?
No, not at all.
Now next, I want to draw your attention to August 29, 2018. Where were you?
Well, this was the day of the Fearsome 5 game, and I was upstairs in my room in the DOD house.
And what happened later that day?
Well, I was upstairs studying, and that's when Amelia Taylor came into the house. I heard her yelling, so I immediately made my way downstairs.
And when you got downstairs, what did you see?
Well, she took me to the field, and that's when I saw Emily Young on the floor. She appeared flushed, her lips were swollen, and that's when I saw the EMS take her away on a stretcher.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
You may.
Good afternoon, Ms. Miller.
Good afternoon.
You're testifying today pursuant to a court order giving you criminal immunity, correct?
I was.
Now, I'd like to speak with you a little bit about your reputation. You have a 4.0 GPA, don't you?
I do.
And you've recently been accepted into law school, correct?
Yes.
And that's something you're very proud of, honestly.
Of course, it is a great achievement.
Being convicted of manslaughter would affect your plans to attend law school, wouldn't it?
It'd affect anyone's plans, but that's not the case.
Going to prison would affect your plans to attend law school.
Yes, it would, but that's not the case today.
Well, let's get this straight. You promised to testify for the prosecution in this case, and in exchange, no criminal charges would be brought against you, correct?
Well, during my interview, they did give me that option. And of course, I made my decision much prior, and I said that I would testify at the prosecution. I had no doubt in my mind what I was going to do.
Well, originally you were in fact arrested and charged with hazing and manslaughter, weren't you?
No, I wasn't.
Is it your sworn testimony here today that you were not arrested?
I was brought down to the police station in which they interviewed me. I was never arrested.
You stated previously that you used to be the pledge master of Delta Omicron Delta, correct?
I did, and I worked my way up to chapter president.
And at that time, you were responsible for all of the pledges in the organization, right?
Yes, Hunter and I both learned the ropes of the pledge master through chasing.
And in fact, you had the pledges you were responsible for perform the Fearsome Five, didn't you?
I did. It was a tradition at the DoD Honor Society, although this year it really was taken out of hand.
Your Honor, at this time, I have permission to approach the witness with what's been entered into evidence as stage one.
Okay.
And for the benefit of the jury, this is page 50 of the case materials. Would Your Honor like the exhibit?
That's right, I have it here.
Now, on direct examination, you stated that you were the custodian of this document, correct?
Yes,
You stated that you reviewed this document, didn't you?
I did.
So you were aware that Emily did in fact have a nut allergy, weren't you?
I am aware, although I was never told that peanuts would be incorporated into the games. Surely if I had, I would have done something about it.
I'll direct you back to the question. You were in fact aware that Emily Young had a peanut allergy, correct?
I was aware, although I was never told that peanuts would be incorporated into a game in which a participant was allergic to.
And on August 29th, 2015, you were the one that called 911, weren't you?
Of course,
Would you recognize a transcript of that call if I was to show it to you?
of course.
Your Honor, should I impose in counsel what's been previously marked for identification of the today? May I approach?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Miller, that is a transcript of the 911 call you made on August 29th, 2015, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And the words that you gave to dispatch are marked under caller 1, correct?
Yes,
And that's in substantially the same condition as when you spoke those words, is it not?
yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to move Exhibit A into evidence as Defense 1.
Okay,
No objection, Your Honor.
all right. Accepted as defense one.
And for the benefit of the jury, this is page 38 of the case materials. Now, Ms. Miller, I'd like you to direct your attention to the second page of that document. Dispatch asked, do you know whether or not Emily has any medical conditions? Is she on any medications, correct?
Yes, I was asked that.
And despite the fact that you were aware of Emily's nut allergy, you said, I don't know, didn't you?
Well, when I first called the police, I was trying to understand what was happening outside. I had no idea that peanuts were being used, and I was trying to understand from Amelia what she was telling me. There was a lot going on, there was a lot of commotion.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
And unfortunately, I responded, I don't know, because I didn't know if she was on any other medications, or any medications at all.
I'll direct you back to the question. Despite the fact that you were aware of Emily's nut allergy from the documentations you reviewed, You told the EMS, "I don't know," when asked about her medications and conditions.
I wasn't 100% sure. I didn't have any, know of any medical medications that she had, or if she had any, like I said before.
Ms. Miller, you've stated previously that you'd had no complaints over how the first half of Pledge Week went, correct?
Everything went smoothly until the Fearsome 5 game.
You had no complaints over how Hunter Wilson conducted those activities, did you?
As I said, everything went smoothly until the Fearsome 5 game.
Yet you did in fact hold concerns over the Fearsome 5 game, correct?
Well, we met, and I did tell her of my concerns.
Yet you never called the university to ensure that everything was okay, did you?
She told me she was going to call the university, so as an officer and a president, I put my trust into my pledge master. Unfortunately, I was wrong about her.
Well, that's a yes to my question. You never called the university, did you?
It was Hunter's responsibility to, so no.
That's a no. You never called the university.
No, as I said, it was Hunter's responsibility.
And you never called the university before you conducted the Fearsome 5 game, did you?
No, I did not. There was never an issue.
Ms. Miller, you were not even present for the Fearsome 5 game in 2015, were you?
I was present for most of the activities, and then I went to the DoD house to study. I put my trust into Miss Hunter that she would conduct these Fearsome 5 game as she told me she would.
Well, thank you very much,
she
Ms.
didn't.
Miller, but you were not present, were you?
No, I was upstairs at the DoD house. I thought everything would run smoothly, but I was wrong.
So you never saw Emily Young consume any foods, did you?
No, I didn't even know there was going to be peanuts at these games.
You never saw Emily Young perform physical activities, correct?
No, I never saw her do the activities at the Fearsome 5 game.
And you did not observe any of Hunter Wilson's actions during the Fearsome 5 game, did you?
No, but I do know that one of her actions was putting peanuts in brownies, and she knew that Emily was allergic to this.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I'll direct you back to the question. You did not observe any of Hunter Wilson's actions during the Fearsome 5 game, did you?
Well, I was at the DoD house, so no, I didn't see her conduct the Fearsome 5 game.
Is it-
Although I was told of the Fearsome 5 game earlier.
Is it your sworn testimony that the Fearsome 5 game isn't even held at the Delta Omicron Delta house?
It is held in the backyard.
So it's not held in a field in a secluded location?
I never said it was in a secluded location. It's in the field in the backyard.
You have no first-hand knowledge of whether or not Emily Young was hazed, do you?
Could you repeat the question?
You have no first-hand knowledge of whether or not Emily Young was hazed at Delta Omicron Delta, do you?
Well, I did meet with Miss Hunter before, and I told her that it could be considered hazing. And that's until now that I know that peanuts were put into a game that she knew she had a peanut allergy. I now can say that this is hazing.
I can see you're having a hard time understanding the question. You never saw Emily Young get hazed at Delta Omicron Delta, did you?
Like I said, I was at the DoD house. I did not see her physically get hazed.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor. This witness may be dismissed.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. You're released. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, at this time, the state calls Sergeant Riley Johnson to the stand.
Come forward, Sergeant Johnson. Take a seat in the box.
Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good afternoon. My name is Sergeant Riley Johnson. That's Johnsson.
How are you employed?
Well, I've been in law enforcement for 13 years. I'm a sergeant with the Gulf Breeze University Police Department now, and I was with the Glendon UPD before that.
Can you tell us a little bit about your training as a police officer?
Well, sure. Relative to the issues in this case, I have basic and advanced school resource officer certifications, basic and advanced narcotics and addiction training, as well as detective school training from the Florida Criminal Justice Academy.
Where did you go to college?
Well, I went to Gulf Breeze University for a year, and then I transferred over to Clemson.
Are you familiar with an honor society with the name of Delta Omicron Delta?
Yes, sir, I am.
More specifically, are you familiar with the pledge activities of Delta Omicron Delta?
Yes, sir.
How so?
Well, I was actually a pledge to the DoD during my second semester at Gulf Breeze before I transferred.
Moving on, were you working on August 29th, 2015?
Yes, sir, I was.
In what capacity?
As a sergeant with the GBUPD.
On that date, and in your capacity as a sergeant, did you have an occasion to become involved in the Emily Young investigation?
Yes, sir, I did.
How did you become involved?
Well, I went to the DoD house after we received a call about an unconscious girl there.
Can you recall what time you arrived at the house?
I arrived at around 1737 p.m.
Can you just list that in civilian time?
That'd be 5:37 p.m.
For the members of the jury, can you describe the scene that you arrived upon?
Yes, I arrived upon the DoD residence. I went into the field where they held their games.
Can you elaborate?
I saw the Palmetto County Emergency Medical Service already on the scene, loading a young, unconscious teenage girl onto a stretcher for transport.
Who would that young, unconscious girl later become known to you as?
That girl was Emily Young.
Moving on, do you know a person by the name of Hunter Wilson?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you see Hunter here in court today?
Yes, sir.
Could you please point her out for the members of the jury?
She is wearing a black top, sitting adjacent to the defense counsel table.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has correctly identified the defendant, Ms. Hunter Wilson.
Alrighty.
Did you talk to the defendant that day?
Yes, sir, I did.
What did you talk about?
Well, she first indicated to me that she was the pledge master for the Delta Omicron Delta on that particular day.
What else?
She said that the pledges were doing the last activity in their pledge week, which they had to do before they were to be admitted into the DoD.
Did she elaborate?
She said that what happened to the victim, Miss Young, was that she ate her plate of brownies, her mystery food, had done 5 burpees, and then she said she needed to go inside and fell down and passed out.
What else, if anything, did you do in furtherance of your investigation?
Well, I asked for consent to search the DoD house.
And did you conduct any other interviews that day?
Yes, sir, I did.
Was Jordan Miller one of the people that you interviewed?
Yes, sir, she was.
From whom did you ask consent to search the DoD house?
Both Jordan Miller and Hunter Wilson.
What, if anything, did you find inside the house?
Well, I found the victim's purse.
Can you describe the contents of this purse?
Absolutely. There was a wallet, some receipts, and a makeup case.
Was anything inside the makeup case?
Yes, there was both an inhaler, typically used for asthma, as well as an EpiPen.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm showing opposing counsel what has been pre-marked as Exhibit F. Permission to approach the witness.
You may.
Sergeant Johnson, I'm showing you what has been pre-marked as Exhibit F. Do you recognize this?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is it?
These are pictures of the DoD yard on that particular day.
Are these pictures a fair and accurate depiction of what they purport to be?
Yes, that's an affirmative.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to move into evidence what has been pre-marked as Exhibit F into evidence as State's Exhibit Number 2.
Defense. All right, let's accept it as States 2.
Can you describe the contents of those photos for the jury?
Absolutely. You can see many plates all gathered upon the relatively small table with signs hanging off it that say the Fearsome Five. You can see various foods and condiments scattered all across the table.
Drawing your attention to the plates in particular, what, if anything, stood out?
Well, I could see many different brownie chunks, and I cannot see any chunks which do not include some kind of peanuts inside of them.
One last question, Sergeant Johnson. Did all of the events that we've just talked about occur here in Palmetto County in Florida?
Yes, sir, that's an affirmative.
Thank you, Your Honor. There will be no further questions at this time.
Cross.
Your Honor, before I begin, may I inquire how much remaining time I have?
2 minutes and 7 seconds, you're allowed.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
You may.
Sergeant Johnson, you previously attended the pledge of Omicron Delta, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I did. That was back in my college years, over 13 years ago, back when I was first at Gulf Breeze University.
But you weren't admitted into Gulf Breeze until
No, sir, as a result of an unfortunate cheating accusation, I was turned away from the DOD.
So, as a result, you decided to transfer to Clemson, correct?
That is correct. I got my degree in military studies there.
Now, Sergeant, I want to talk to you about August 29, 2015. You first received a call about 4 p.m., didn't you?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And after this call, you had a concern for hazing, correct?
Yes, it came from a confidential informant who indicated that there might be hazing at the DOD house on that day.
And Sergeant, hazing is something that your department takes very seriously, isn't it?
Absolutely, sir. Hazing results in many deaths, including the death of Miss Emily Young.
But you personally didn't respond to that call, did you?
Well, yes, sir, we absolutely did.
You personally responded to the call at 4 p.m.
I went to the drone department and I sent a drone that conducted surveillance on the DOD yard to ensure that no hazing would take place.
I'm sorry, I don't think you understood the question. You personally did not go to Delta Homecoming after that call, did you?
No, sir, I did not go to the house. Instead, we used a drone to conduct surveillance. In light of many campus shootings that occur, we use it as a resource to protect the lives of our officers.
And you received a call at 5:08 p.m. dispatching you to that same location, didn't you?
Yes, sir, that is correct. That was after the unfortunate death of
And it wasn't until
Emily.
5:37 p.m. that you arrived on scene, was it?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
That's precisely 29 minutes after the original dispatch call, isn't it?
Well, I'm not a big math guy, but that appears to be the case.
And an hour and 37 minutes after your initial concern for hazing, correct?
Well, my initial concern of hazing was backed up by that drone. However, after that drone showed us that there was no apparent hazing going on at that house, we did not take any further action until Miss Young became unconscious.
So, Sergeant, when you arrived on scene, there were 7 people, excluding yourself, the EMS, and the unconscious girl, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And you interviewed 3 people, correct?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
And the president, as well as the pledge master, consented to your investigation of the house. Am I right?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And inside the house, you found an inhaler and Emily Young's makeup bag.
Yes, I did.
And you previously stated that inhalers are used to control asthma, correct?
Well, I said it appeared to be for asthma. Most inhalers typically are. We also found an EpiPen in that same purse makeup case.
So, Sergeant, it's safe to assume on August 29, 2015, Emily Young was under a condition of asthma, wasn't she?
Well, I wouldn't know if she was under a condition of asthma.
Your Honor, Sergeant Johnson just testified to inhalers usually being used for asthma. Furthermore, said that he found an inhaler in Emily Young's bag, Emily Young's bag. Therefore, he does have personal knowledge as to whether or not he testified that she could have had an asthma problem.
If I may be heard.
Let him finish, but go ahead.
Sergeant Johnson responded to the scene after the games occurred. He did not witness the games. He did not see Emily Young as she was suffering from any conditions. Therefore, he does not have personal knowledge of her medical conditions.
I'm going to sustain the objection, but you can rephrase. I think you can get
Sergeant
there.
Johnson, on August 29th, Emily Young had an inhaler, didn't she?
How do you mean have? She had one in her purse.
It was in her possession, correct?
Well, it appeared not to be in her possession over the course of the games, along with the EpiPen that she did not have in her possession.
Now, Sergeant, when you arrived on scene, you did not initially secure the scene, did you?
No, sir, at that apparent time it was not a crime scene. However, we did preserve and document the scene through photographs.
You didn't take photographs that night, did you? You came back and took photographs multiple days later, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you took the photos multiple days later?
Your Honor, objection asked and answered.
Your Honor,
I'll allow clarification. We were unsure.
Sergeant, is that a yes, those photos were taken multiple days later?
No, sir, I believe those photographs were taken as I entered, or as I secured, or not rather secured, but entered that scene and observed it.
Sergeant, you didn't secure the scene the next day, did you?
No, sir, we secured it after we discovered in that autopsy that there was indeed homicide or foul play involving Miss Young's death.
And you initially arrested 2 people, didn't you?
Yes, sir, we did.
And one of those first people was Jordan Miller, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, she was.
Now, Sergeant, when you arrived on scene, you previously testified interviewing 7 people, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And you only interviewed 3 of them, correct?
Yes, sir, we did.
So there were 4 people there that you did interview, am I right?
Yes, sir. We interviewed the president and the pledge master, 2 people who directly oversaw the activities, in addition to Amelia Taylor, who was a pledge.
So that is correct. Correct. There was 4 people you did not interview that night?
That appears to be the case, sir.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you, Sergeant. You can step down. Next witness, please. You are released.
At this time, the state calls Dr. Sean Reed
Your
to
Honor.
stand.
There are many documents left upon the stand.
Thank you. Take a seat in the box, Dr. Reed.
Good afternoon, Doctor. Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Certainly. My name is Dr. Sean Reed.
And what do you do for a living, Dr. Reed?
Well, currently I'm an assistant medical examiner for the state of Florida.
And can you describe your educational background for the members of the jury?
Yes, well, after getting my bachelor's degree from Buffalo University, I got my medical degree from Baylor College of Medicine, where I received top marks.
And while you were at Baylor College of Medicine, did you receive any certifications or awards?
Yes, I received certifications in anatomical pathology as well as anthropology.
And can you describe how you utilize those certifications in your day-to-day life as a medical examiner?
Yes, well, I use them every day whenever I'm conducting an autopsy. I use the anatomical pathology certification whenever physically examining the organs and the tissues in a body. And I use the anthropology certification whenever examining the circumstances surrounding somebody's death.
Now, you mentioned you utilize the anatomical pathology certification when conducting autopsies. Could you explain what an autopsy is?
Certainly. Well, an autopsy is a post-mortem examination of a body that is done in order to determine the cause and manner of death for that specific person.
And are cause and manner of death different?
Yes, they are different. Cause of death is the medical cause of death. It is why someone died, while manner of death is how someone died. Examples of manner of death are homicide, suicide, or natural causes.
And in this case, did you conduct the autopsy of Miss Young?
Yes, I did.
And did you come to conclusions as to her cause and manner of death?
Yes, I did come to conclusions.
At this time, Your Honor, we'd like to tender Dr. Sean Reed as an expert in the field of anatomical pathology as well as anthropology pursuant to stipulation 20, where both parties agree he is a qualified expert witness.
He will be accepted as an expert.
Thank you. And you mentioned you came to conclusions on Miss Young's cause and manner of death. What did you review in order to formulate that opinion?
Well, I examined Miss Young's body itself. I also submitted her bodily fluids to a toxicology screening, and I reviewed that report. And I also reviewed the circumstantial evidence surrounding Miss Young's death, what happened on the day of her death.
And what did you ultimately find in the cause and manner of death?
Well, I concluded that Miss Young died due to anaphylaxis, an allergic reaction, and her manner of death was homicide, or death by human intervention.
And what do you mean by anaphylaxis?
Well, anaphylaxis is a severe allergic reaction, in this case to peanuts.
Okay, so let's talk about how you got to that conclusion. Now, could you explain what an autopsy typically entails?
Well, an autopsy comes in 3 parts. First, there is the external examination of the organs. The external examination of the body. Then there's the internal examination, and that is where we examine the organs and the tissues. And finally, we send the bodily fluids off to a toxicology screening.
Okay, so let's first discuss the external portion of that autopsy. What, if anything, was significant during the external portion?
Well, during the course of the external examination, I discovered that Miss Young had bruises that were consistent with a fall from standing position. Further, I discovered that Miss Young's face, and especially her lips, were swollen.
And in regards to the internal examination, what, if anything, was significant?
Well, during the internal examination, I discovered that Miss Young had a swollen throat and brain stem, along with widened blood vessels. Further, I discovered that she had a large amount of peanuts in her stomach, esophagus, and mouth.
And why was it significant that she had peanuts in her stomach, her esophagus, and her mouth?
Well, Miss Young, according to her medical records, had a known allergy to peanuts, and given the large amounts of peanuts that I found in the stomach, along with the fact that all of the symptoms, the swelling of the face, the lips, the brainstem, the throat, and the widening of the blood vessels are all consistent with an allergic reaction, That led me to conclude that she did indeed die due to anaphylaxis.
And did you take any further steps to confirm your conclusion?
Yes, I submitted the bodily fluids off to a toxicology screening where I discovered that Miss Young had theophylline in her system.
And what is theophylline?
Well, theophylline is a daily medication for asthma. It is taken in order to prevent an asthma attack.
And why would she have theophylline in her system?
Well, Miss Young did have, according to her medical records, asthma.
And in that toxicology report, what, if anything, did you find?
Well, I found that Miss Young had what we call a therapeutic dosage of theophylline. Now, the amount of theophylline, the amount of that drug in her system, would have prevented any asthma attack on the day of her death, and the amount of theophylline in her system was a therapeutic dosage for her height and weight.
Now I'd like to talk to you about a doctor by the name of Dr. Tristan Martinez. Now, are you familiar with this doctor?
Yes, I am familiar with Dr. Martinez.
And did you rely upon her conclusions in either formulating your own or canceling or rejecting other conclusions?
Yes, well, I reviewed Dr. Martinez's reports. I considered her conclusions and I ultimately, based on the evidence, rejected them.
Now, as Dr. Tristan Martinez has not yet testified, could you briefly summarize for members of the jury what she found the cause and manner of death were?
Yes, well, she believes that Miss Young died due to asthma.
And why do you disagree with Dr. Martinez?
Well, first of all, as I said, the amount of theophylline in her system would have prevented an asthma attack on the day of her death. But further, Miss Young's status as an athlete, as a track star, shows that she knows how to properly regulate herself when she's going to be involved in a strenuous activity, such as running, or in this case, burpees.
Now, you mentioned while conducting the autopsy, you reviewed her organs. Did you notice her respiratory system while conducting this internal examination?
Yes, during the internal examination, I reviewed her lungs.
And was there anything noticeable or remarkable about her lungs?
No, her lungs and her respiratory system appeared perfectly fine. There were no marks, no scarrings of any kind.
Now I'd like to talk about your determination of the manner of death. Now, can you please explain how you came to your conclusion?
Yes, well, homicide is death by human intervention. Now, in this case, Miss Young died due to the consumption of peanuts. Now, when she consumed these peanuts, and she was blindfolded, and so thus a human intervened by putting these peanuts in front of her, that is human intervention.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I have no further questions.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're 27 years old, isn't that right?
Oh, yes, I am, Doctor at 27.
And you've been a practicing physician for 2 years now, isn't that right?
Well, I finished my residency at the age of 25 after skipping a few grades. Yes.
So during that time, you've never seen a case of fatal anaphylaxis prior to this one, isn't that right?
Well, anaphylaxis is quite a rare way to die, but in this case, anaphylaxis was the cause of death.
Now, let me redirect you back to my question. You've never seen a case of fatal anaphylaxis prior to this case, have you?
Well, no, this is the first time that anaphylaxis was indeed the cause of death.
So technically, the extent of your experience with fatal anaphylaxis comes from your education, does it not?
Well, yes, I studied at Baylor, I received top marks. I am familiar with anaphylaxis and its symptoms.
And now you're not familiar of exactly when Ms. Young was diagnosed with a peanut and tree nut allergy, correct?
Well, no, but that's irrelevant, as it was in her medical records, it was known before her death, and she died from anaphylaxis, regardless if she knew about it or not.
Now, you waited a full 2 days after Ms. Young died to conduct your autopsy, correct?
Well, that is when I received the body, that's when it was scheduled for her autopsy to be done.
Now, you mentioned before a toxicology report. Did you conduct this toxicology screening?
No, I sent it to the person in charge of doing toxicology screenings.
But you must be familiar with the therapeutic range then, correct?
Well, yes, the therapeutic range, and Miss Young had a therapeutic dosage for her height and weight.
Now, therapeutic range, just to clarify for the members of the jury, is 5 to 15, is it not?
Well, no, that is the average range. It does not include everybody. It's not completely inclusive.
Now, would it help if I refreshed your memory by bringing up the toxicology report for you?
No, the average range for theophylline is indeed 5 to 15 micrograms per milliliter. Now, Miss Young, her small height and small weight meant that her dosage was going to be below average.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm approaching the witness and what the previously marked record and pleading as exhibit I.
Okay.
This is the toxicology report, is it not?
Yes, and I relied upon this in coming to my conclusions.
So, this is something that you would conduct for any other anaphylactic reaction, correct?
Well, yes, this is a very standard practice when conducting an autopsy. As I said, it is part of the 3 parts of an autopsy.
And that's in the substantially same condition as when you last saw it, correct?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'd like to move exhibit I into evidence at this time as defense 2.
You have no objection.
All right, accept this defense 2.
Now, could you please read for the jury the therapeutic range, which says 5 to 15 micrograms per milliliter?
Well, yes, as I said, the average range, as stated right here, is 5 to 15 micrograms per milliliter, but as I said, that is not inclusive for all heights and weights.
However, that is the therapeutic range on the form, is it not? Not the average range.
Objection, Your Honor, asks to answer.
I think it's clarification overall.
Let me ask you again. That would be the therapeutic range is 5 to 15, not the average range, correct?
Well, it says therapeutic range, but that is the average therapeutic range.
Okay, and Ms. Young tested at a 3.85, did she not?
Yes, because of her below average height and below average weight, she has a below average therapeutic dosage of theophylline.
So 3.85 is not within the therapeutic range of 5 to 15, is it?
It's not within the average, however, given her small height and weight, it is sufficient. We would not give the same dosage of theophylline to a 6'2" basketball player than to a 5'2", 131-pound college student.
Now, you're aware that Ms. Young was partaking in physical activity during her time in the Fearsome 5, correct?
Yes, and she was also consuming peanuts.
And overexertion due to physical activity can cause death, can't it?
Well, there would need to be some other cause, and in this case, there was none. There was just the anaphylaxis.
Now, you determined one of the causes of death to be the widened blood vessels and the dramatic drop in the blood pressure of the victim, correct?
Oh, yes, the anaphylaxis caused the throat to swell. This caused the airways to be blocked. The lack of oxygen caused the blood vessels to widen, and this further led to the brainstem being widened and a feeling really of decapitation for Miss Young.
However, you did not conduct a serology test for Ms. Young, did you?
Oh, testing the bladder? No, that was not necessary.
But a serology test is testing for blood antibodies, is it not?
Well, testing that would have allowed us to see if Miss Young did indeed have peanuts in her system, but given the large amounts of peanuts in her stomach, esophagus, and mouth, it wasn't necessary.
Now, doctor, you didn't test for hypotension at all for Ms. Young, did you?
Well, although Miss Young's family has a history of hypotension, the fact is that she had a large amount of peanuts in the stomach, and she had a peanut allergy, and there's no documented evidence that she had hypotension prior to her death.
But a serology test would have been the only way to positively confirm that the hypotension played absolutely no role in Ms. Young's death, isn't that right?
No, that's not correct. It would have shown that she had peanuts in her system, but given the large amount of peanuts that we found, that wasn't necessary.
Now, in the record that you wrote for Ms. Young's death, you never actually quantified the number of the allergen that Ms. Young consumed, do you?
While I can't say the exact amount of peanuts in her system, I can say that it was quite a large amount, and it was found in the esophagus and the mouth, thus leading me to conclude that it was actually the last thing that she ate.
However, we really have no idea how much of this allergen Miss Young consumed on the night that she died, do we?
Well, it was a sufficient amount to enact a severe anaphylactic shock.
Now, just to be clear, from your 2 years of experience, you have concluded that Miss Young died from the extremely rare fatal anaphylaxis rather than the extremely common asthma attack. Is that right?
Well, given my years of experience at medical school, and then during my residency, which I finished at the age of 25, and then my working experience as an assistant medical examiner, plus all of the evidence, all of that led me to conclude that she did indeed die due to anaphylaxis and homicide.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
You direct?
No, we have nothing further for this witness.
Thank you, sir. You can step down.
What should I do with you?
Any additional witnesses for the state?
No, Your Honor. However, before the prosecution rests, we would like to publish the basic exhibit 1 and 2 for the members of the jury, which is found on pages 48 and 50 of the case materials.
Okay.
Sorry, Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
Defense? First witness, please.
Your Honor, the defense calls Ashton Davis to the stand. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Ashton Davis.
Where do you go to school?
I currently attend Gulf Breeze University and am a junior.
Are you a member of any extracurricular activities at Gulf Breeze?
Yes, I'm very involved at Gulf Breeze, specifically with the Delta Omicron Delta Honor Society.
Tell us a little bit about Delta Omicron Delta.
Sure, so the Honor Society is basically a compilation of social events and charitable functions. It's sort of a mix between the two, if you will.
Now, why did you join the society?
Well, I joined the society because Hunter Wilson had actually mentioned it to me, and first thing that popped into my mind was, wow, this would probably look really great on my resume, so, I decided why not.
What do you have to do to become a member of the society?
It's pretty simple, actually. You only have to do 2 things. The first one being maintaining a certain GPA, and the second one being paying dues to the charitable funds account at DOD.
Does the society have a pledge week of any sorts?
Yes, there is a pledge week, but it is 100% optional, and you do not have to participate in it to still pledge.
What types of games are usually played?
Well, from what I can tell you, because I myself didn't participate, it's sort of a week of field games, ending with the most iconic game, the Fearsome Five.
What's your understanding of the Fearsome Five?
Well, from what I've seen, the Fearsome Five is kind of like a trivia game, if you will, about the Delta Omicron Delta Honor Society. Pledges are asked a question, and if they get it wrong, they are asked to eat a mystery food and then proceed to do X amount of burpees.
Now, do you have to participate in these pledge week activities?
Absolutely not. It's 100% optional. I didn't participate in any Pledge Week activities, and I am just as much as a member as anyone else who did.
How did you know that you didn't have to participate?
So when we're joining DOD, we're given a big compilation of forms. One of these forms states that you do not have to participate in any of the activities of Pledge Week, and you sign it and turn it in.
Now, to your knowledge, over the years, has the Fearsome Five changed at all?
Not as far as I can tell. Hunter's games were the same as Jordan had made them, and Jordan the same as the previous pledge master before her, Chase.
Now, were you present for the Pledge Olympics that Ms. Young participated in?
Yes, actually. I was kind of looking to pass time that day and decided to attend and watch a bit of it. I was waiting for the fall football practice to begin.
Did you see Ms. Miller there?
No, I actually didn't see her there at all.
Now, were you present when Ms. Young collapsed and passed out?
No, I had left before then. Like I said, I was going to go watch the fall football practice that day.
Now, I just want to be clear. Tell me whether or not a pledge can still be admitted into the society without participating at all in these Pledge Week activities, including the Fearsome Five.
Absolutely. You do not have to participate in Pledge Week in order to still become a pledge. It's 100% optional. I myself didn't participate, and I am just as much as a member as anyone else.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. I first want to talk to you about your relationship with Hunter. You and Hunter went to the University 101 class last year, correct?
This is correct.
And ever since, you and Hunter have been friends, correct?
Yeah, we've been, friends, acquaintances.
Now next I want to draw your attention to August 29th, 2015. On this day, you attended the Pledge Olympics and you observed the beginning of the Pearson 5 games, correct?
Yes, I did. I was there for about the first 3 rounds.
But you were only there for 3 rounds, then you left to go to the fall football practice, yes or no?
Yes, this is correct.
So you weren't at the Pearson 5 game for round 4?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't there for round 5?
No, I had left before to go to the fall football practice, as I had said.
So you were there when Emily Young consumed brownies, correct?
No, I was not present.
And you also weren't there when she performed a physical activity of a burpee, correct?
Like I said before, I had left to go watch the fall football practice.
Thank you. So next, I want to talk to you about the rules and rituals of DOD. DOD's first rule is pledges are not allowed to have their cell phones during Pledge Week, correct?
This is correct. However, you're given these rules if you do choose to participate in Pledge Week. And during Pledge Week, you can opt out at any time of the activities.
So that's a yes to my question. Pledges are not allowed to have their cell phones during Pledge Week. So based on these DOD rules, if a pledge needed to call their parent to say, Mom or Dad, I'm in trouble, I need help, they wouldn't be able to do so by way of their personal cell phone. Yes or no?
Well, actually, if that was a matter, I'm sure that someone would choose to opt out at that point. Then they would be given full privilege of their cell phones and still be able to 100% become a member.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase my question. At the Pearson 5 games, there's a table, correct?
Yes, there is a table at Pearson 5 games.
And pledges are at the back of this table, correct?
Yes, if they do choose to participate.
And if a pledge dropped out of the game, said, I don't want to play anymore, stepped out, they wouldn't be able to pick up their phone on their personal being, call their parent and say, I'm in trouble, I need help. Yes or no?
If they chose to opt out, they could be given their cell phone back.
No, when they step out of the game, they can't pick up their phone and call their parent immediately. It's a simple yes or no question.
Well, I wouldn't be aware of where their cell phone was placed, but if it was not on their person, no. However, if you do opt out of the games, you would be given your cell phone back at any time.
So to yes to my question, they don't have their cell phones during the games. And another rule is pledges are not allowed inside of the DOD house, yes or no?
If you choose to participate, this is a rule. However, if you don't choose to participate, it is not a
Objection,
rule.
Your Honor, non-responsive. This question called for a yes or no answer.
Any response to the objection?
Your Honor, I believe the witness was simply trying to explain herself.
I think it's fair. Overall.
So pledges are not allowed inside of the DOD house, yes or no?
If you choose to participate within the Pledge Week activities, that is a rule. However, at any time, if you feel uncomfortable, you can opt out of the activities and still become a member.
And how do you put it? The defendant was crazy about the rules. Did you ever make that statement?
Yes, as in crazy excited. She gets very excited about all of the rules because she's very dedicated to Pledge Week. She loves the process.
I'm sorry, I'm not asking you why you made the statement. I'm simply asking you, did you say the defendant was crazy about the rules? Yes or no?
Yes, as in crazy excited.
Thank you. Next, I want to talk to you about the voluntariness or involuntariness of these Pledge Olympics. For breaking rules in DOD, there are punishments, correct?
This is correct. Once again, if you choose to participate, you can opt out at any time.
And these punishments are called atonements, to atone. Yes or no?
Yes, however, they're also 100% optional. Anytime you can drop out of the Pledge Week activities.
I'm sorry, I'm not asking you if they're optional or not. I'm simply asking you if these punishments are called atonements.
Yes, they are, but they're very optional because you can opt out at any time.
And you heard the defendant say, we say the activities are voluntary, but I've never seen a pledge opt out and still be initiated. Is this what the defendant said?
Well, she did say that, and that's sort of a joke between us now because I proved her wrong.
I'm sorry, so that's a yes to my question. The defendant made this statement.
Yes, she did make this statement, and then after I proved her wrong, didn't participate in any Pledge Week activities, and was still initiated.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
You direct?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Davis, are you treated any differently within the society since you opted out of the Winter Olympics?
Absolutely not. I'm just as much as a member as anyone else, and I'm given full membership of DoD without participating in any of the Pledge Week activities.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Can you recross us to that?
No recross, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. You're released. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, at this time, the state, or the defense calls Dr. Tristan Martinez to the stand. And by Your Honor,
You may.
please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Tristan Martinez.
What's your educational background?
Well, I received my undergrad degree in biology and my MD in internal medicine from Duke University.
What's your previous work history?
Well, currently, for the past 6 years, I've been a Fellows Professor of Pathology at the University of Maryland. But prior to that, for around 9 years or so, I was the Associate Director at the University of Tennessee's Forensic Anthropology Facility. A lot of locals call it the body farm because there I was able to observe all methods of death and decomposition in order to make better decisions in autopsy procedures and in criminal investigations.
Doctor, have you ever been published before?
I have.
Have you ever testified as an expert witness in trial before?
Actually, I have. I've been doing that for around 15 years, and I do it nearly every weekend.
What paperwork did you review for today's case?
To begin my investigation, I was able to review a lot of paperwork from the defense's solicitor's office. I reviewed Ms. Young's medical records, medical release form, emergency room report, death certificate, and the coroner's report.
Doctor, I'm going to be asking you a series of opinionated questions. Will you be able to give these to the medical degree certainty?
Absolutely.
And if not, will you be able to tell the court otherwise?
Of course.
Your Honor, now that this witness as an expert in forensics pathology as well as anatomical and clinical pathology and anthropology pursuant to the stipulation 1998.
She will be so accepted.
Doctor, why are you here today?
I was hired by the defense to do a fair and independent evaluation of Ms. Young's death, considering the state said she died from such a rare cause of death.
And what is that rare cause of death?
They said that she died from anaphylaxis.
We've heard that word a few times today. Can you explain that to us?
Oh, of course. Okay. So anaphylaxis is basically an allergic reaction. However, it's something that can range from being extremely mild to being extremely severe. And that means that you must, in order to determine how lethal or dangerous the anaphylaxis was, to do a basic bladder test.
And what is a baseline bladder test?
A baseline bladder test basically means when you're doing the autopsy, you need to draw all the fluid from the bladder, and then from that, you can determine the amount of allergen in the system that causes death. And that's just super important so you know whether or not the reaction was mild or severe.
Did Dr. Sharma complete this test?
He did not. He did not.
So is his diagnosis of anaphylaxis complete?
Absolutely not. All that Dr. Sean Reed did was look at the bladder, the esophagus, mouth, say, oh, there's peanuts in there. She must have had, Ms. Young must have had anaphylaxis. However, without the baseline bladder test, it'd be impossible to know whether or not Ms. Young passed away or not from anaphylaxis.
Now, doctor, did Emily Young have any family medical history?
She did. She actually had a family medical history of hypotension.
What is hypotension?
It's low blood pressure.
And how would you test for hypotension?
You test for hypotension by doing a serology test. Dr. Reed actually was confused about that. You need to go to the blood, look at the antigens and antibodies, and from that, you determine whether or not someone has hypotension. It's actually also an extremely dominant genetic condition.
Did Dr. Shummery test for that?
No.
Does Emily Young have any other underlying health conditions?
She also has the underlying health condition of asthma.
And what is asthma?
In essence, asthma is basically a chronic condition of the respiratory system. It makes it so that the lungs become constricted and difficult to breathe. Generally, it's accompanied by a mucosa in the bronchioles.
Doctor, what triggers an asthma attack?
There's two things that can trigger an asthma attack.
And what are those two things?
First being overexertion, the second being the failure to regulate.
And do either of these fit the case of Emily Young?
They actually both do, but I lean more so towards failure to regulate.
All right, let's start there. What is a failure to regulate?
Failure to regulate is basically when someone's prescribed a medication to manage their condition, but they're not doing it properly because they're not taking enough of their medication.
Doctor, did Sean Reed test for this?
He did a toxicology report.
Would you be familiar with this if I was to show it to you?
Without a doubt.
You have permission to approach the witness with what's been previously entered into evidence as states 2, or defense 2, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Doctor, is this the toxicology report that Dr. Sean Reed completed?
Yes.
For the benefit of the jury, this is page 52 of the case package. Doctor, what is the therapeutic range of theophylline?
The therapeutic range of theophylline is 5 to 15 micrograms per milliliter, and this is something that everyone has to be within.
Now, doctor, how tall was Emily Young?
She was 5'5". I don't know where 5'2" came from, but she was 5'5" and 131 pounds. She was an average-sized person, athletic build, healthy. She needed to be in 5 to 15 microgram per milliliter range, in the therapeutic range.
And doctor, where was she on the therapeutic range?
She wasn't. She was in the low range at 3.85 micrograms per milliliter.
And what does that mean could happen to Emily Young?
She would be susceptible to all the side effects of asthma: tightness of chest, wheezing, tightness of the throat.
Doctor, I want to move on to overexertion. How did Emily reach a level of overexertion?
Well, overexertion occurs when you do a lot of physical activity. It doesn't even have to be a lot. It can be something extremely minimal or something really strenuous. And in the case of Miss Young doing the fearsome 5, I believe that could have triggered an overexertion.
Doctor, what physical activity was Emily Young completing?
She was doing burpees.
And what is a burpee, I guess? In a medical term, what is a burpee?
Burpees simply, an exercise. You jump up, go down, jump up.
Objection or lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor, Dr. Tristan Martinez was here during the testimony of a burpee, therefore has personal knowledge as it was explained earlier in today's trial.
Your Honor, if I may, opposing counsel invoked the rule of sequestration in the pre-trial matters. Thus, this expert witness was not present while Jordan Miller demonstrated the burpee.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, in that constructive sequestration, I asked to keep out the 2 expert witnesses as well as the defendant in today's trial, therefore she would have been present.
Yeah, he did. Overall.
So doctor, in medical terms, what is a burpee?
It's simply an exercise.
And could multiple burpees begin to become strenuous activity?
Of course, even one could be in the right conditions.
And were you present for Dr. Sean Reed's testimony?
I was.
And what was missing from his work?
There's actually a few things, if you don't mind me going over them.
Go ahead, what's the first thing?
The first thing is the baseline bladder test never being done. That is so important when trying to diagnose for anaphylaxis. Without doing this, there's no way to know the volume of the allergen that was in the system that caused the death. And meaning there's no way to know if the reaction was mild or severe.
So doctor, without that, can you definitively say Emily Young died from anaphylaxis?
Not at all.
And furthermore, what's the second thing missing from Dr. Sean Reed's testimony?
They also never did a serology test, which is super also important to do because she had a genetic condition of hypertension in her family. And without knowing whether or not she also suffered from hypertension, there's no way to know if she also didn't ultimately die from hypertension, considering that her airways constricted and her blood vessels dilated.
So doctor, without that, can you definitively rule out every other underlying health condition?
No, there's no way to know.
Did Sean Reed still do that?
He did, and I think it's because of his inexperience.
And what is the last thing you noticed?
I noticed that the theophylline levels were obviously so low. In fact, Miss Young was out of range. She was at 3.85 micrograms per milliliter. At that level, with being 5'5", 131 pounds, and athletic build, she was not being treated properly for asthma.
Doctor, to a medical degree of certainty, how did Emily Young die?
If I'm being honest, there's no way to know with the lack of testing.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
Okay, now I'd like to talk to you about what you reviewed in formulating your opinions. Now,
course.
you'd agree, if you base your conclusion on an incomplete understanding of the facts, you would get an incomplete conclusion, yes?
I guess you could say that, but that's exactly what I did. I saw the incompleteness and the lack of evidence, and I just simply distributed that to everyone else.
We'll get to that in a moment, but you'd agree in science the saying goes, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out, yes?
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Well, basically, as I previously stated, if you base your conclusion on an incomplete understanding, you get a bad conclusion, correct?
Well, I don't just simply here to tell you that Dr. Reed was incomplete.
Okay, so let's talk about how yours was complete or incomplete. Now, you'd agree on direct examination. You mentioned you reviewed the health records, medical records, death certificate, and emergency room report, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and that's all you reviewed in formulating your opinion, yes?
Medical records, emergency room report, yeah.
Okay. Now, you did not review the affidavit of Riley Johnson, correct?
Oh, no, but I was here for his testimony.
I appreciate that. However, drawing you back to my question, you did not review the affidavit of Riley Johnson, I apologize. Yes or no?
More or less, I did speak to him.
Yes or no, you did not review the affidavit of Riley Johnson?
Actually, in hindsight, I did.
Okay, so you just all of a sudden forgot that you happened to review those affidavits in coming to your testimony today?
No.
All right, let's clarify for the members of the jury, Doctor. Did you or did you not review the affidavit of Riley Johnson?
I did review the affidavit of Riley Johnson.
And you reviewed the affidavit of Jordan Miller?
I believe so.
Okay, so let's talk about what you learned from those affidavits. Now, you're familiar with the fact that Miss Young was an athlete, yes?
Of course, but just because she was an athlete doesn't mean that she wouldn't be vulnerable to the side effects of asthma. In fact, there's many great athletes out there who have had to stop mid-game to use an inhaler.
I appreciate that, but let me be more concise in my question. Yes or no, you're aware that Miss Young was an athlete, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that she was specifically an athlete in track, yes?
Yes, that's why she was on theophylline.
Okay, and you'd agree track is a strenuous activity, correct?
Individual to individual.
Okay, and you'd agree that in order to perform in track, you'd have to be properly regulated if you have a condition of asthma, yes?
Of course, in the 5 to 15 microgram per milliliter range.
Okay. Now I'd like to talk to you about your determination that Dr. Sean Reed failed to test the bladder. Now you'd agree, doctor, that urine is a fluid, yes?
Of course.
Okay. And you're also aware, obviously, because you reviewed the coroner's report that Dr. Sean Reed prepared, that he submitted blood, bile, and other fluids for toxicological analysis, correct?
Obviously, but that's not the baseline bladder test, the serology test.
Well, I appreciate that. However, drawing you back to my question, you're familiar that you reviewed, or you submitted, I apologize, blood, bile, and other fluids for toxicological analysis.
Of course, but that still led to incomplete results.
Okay. Now, you did not contact Dr. Sean Reed to figure out what those other fluids entailed, correct?
No, I did not.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions for the service.
You direct?
Yes, Your Honor. Doctor, without the baseline bladder test, what does that do for the conclusion of Dr. Sean Reed?
It means there's no way to know if Miss Emily Young passed away or not from anaphylaxis, because there's no way to know whether or not the reaction was mild or severe.
Doctor, does doing any other test make up for not doing the baseline bladder test?
Absolutely not. As technical and scientific as Dr. Reed tried to make it seem, all he did was look at the body and say, that's a lot of peanuts.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Reprocess to that.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, doctor. You can step down. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, this time the defense calls Hunter Wilson to the stand.
Ms. Wilson, come forward.
Ms. Wilson, thank you for testifying today. Will you please take a moment and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. My name is Hunter Wilson.
Ms. Wilson, how old are you?
I am 21 years old.
Where did you attend college?
Well, I had the privilege of getting to attend Gulf Breeze University.
And at GBU, were you involved in any extracurricular activities?
I was actually. I got to be a part of the prestigious Delta Omicron Delta Honor Society, as well as the assistant manager at the Jittery Bean Cafe.
I'd like to speak with you about Delta Omicron Delta. How long have you been a member?
Well, I was first inducted when I was a sophomore in 2014, and I had just loved it ever since. It's my family, the DoD family.
And have you ever held an elected position within the organization?
Yes, actually. This past year I was given the extreme honour of being the pledge master.
And can you please tell the jury a little about your responsibilities you took on as the pledge master?
I can. I was in charge of, getting to help organise all of the different pledge activities, as well as being in charge of all of the paperwork from transcripts to medical records and the different liability release forms.
I realize it may be difficult, Ms. Wilson, but we need to talk about Emily Young. You need to take a moment to let the court know.
Okay.
When did you first meet Emily?
I first met Emily through her older brother Chase. She would come up and visit us and, do our community service activities with us, and, we'd keep her out of trouble sometimes, and we became really close, and I regarded her as my little sister.
Do you feel protected of Emily?
Absolutely, like I said, Emily was like my little sister, and you always want to have them under your wing and protect them wherever you can.
At that time, were you aware of Emily Young's medical condition?
I was, one because Emily was like my little sister, but as well I was in charge of the medical release forms, and on that Emily had stated her different allergies and suffering from asthma.
You mentioned the medical release form. Would you recognize that if I was to show it to you?
I would, yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to approach the witness with what's been entered into evidence as States 1.
All right.
And for the jury, this is page 50.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Wilson, is that Emily Young's paperwork?
Yes, it is.
Could you please read the jury the section marked 1?
I can. It says, I hereby certify that I am physically fit to participate in the Delta Omicron Delta. Emily Young, I hereby consent to being said participant competing in events sponsored by DoD Fraternity and or the Delta Omicron Delta Foundation. Emily Young.
Could you please read the section marked acknowledgement of warning?
I can. It says, I, Emily Young, hereby acknowledge that I have been properly advised, cautioned, and warned by the proper personnel of DoD, Hunter Wilson, that by participating in such event, I am exposing myself to the above described risks.
So, did Emily participate in the Pledge Week activities in 2015?
Yes, she did. Everybody, the members and the pledges, all seem to be enjoying themselves all week and having fun participating in all of the different activities.
Did Emily have to play these games and participate in the activities to become a member of Delta Omicron Delta?
Oh gosh, no. It said from the very beginning of the week to the very end that all of our activities are 100% optional.
Did you personally notify people who were seeking initiation about that?
I absolutely did. I stated it verbally multiple times throughout the week, from the very beginning to the very end, and I also gave it to them on a piece of paper just so they'd have it written down as well.
Now I'd like to speak with you about the Pearson 5. Did anyone have concerns about the Pearson 5 game taking place this year?
Actually, Jordan did, and it was really weird because Jordan had played the exact same games as I did the year before.
And did you take action to directly address Jordan's concerns?
I did. Being a leader, you want to ensure everybody's safety and concern, so I took upon myself to call the university and describe step by step our event that we were doing, just to get that bit of confirmation.
Did you ever hear back from the university?
I didn't. They're very busy with all the activities around, but we've never had a problem in the past with this. It's a tradition for the DoD, so we didn't have problems before.
Can you please tell the members of the jury if you took any precautions in regard to Emily Young's allergies in the Fearsome Five game?
I actually took multiple different precautions. I went and I made a separate batch of brownies myself for Emily, and I put them on a white plate and put a big black dark ring around the plate and put those nutless brownies on it, as well as I set Emily at the very bottom of the table on the end, has a bit more room away from other people, and that's where I set her for the events.
And what happened during round 4 of the Fearsome Five?
Well, we were getting ready to start, and I said ready, set, go, and another pledge was getting sick, so I'm here to help everybody, we're our family, and so I was holding back their hair when they were getting sick, and everybody was participating if they wanted to in the different food that was in front of them.
Did you have other members help you perform the games?
Oh yes, I did. The members are a very crucial part in our events. They're the leaders as well as myself, and so they're always very happy to come and help out with all the pledges.
Was Jordan Miller present to help you?
No, I don't know where Jordan was actually.
Miss Wilson, please tell the members of the jury, did you force Emily Young to consume any foods?
Absolutely not. Emily, like every single one of the other pledges, had the absolute 100% option to participate or not to participate, and you treat people how you want to be treated, and I would never ever ever force anybody to do that.
Did you ask Emily Young if she wanted to stop playing the Fearsome Five?
I did, all the pledges, they know that it's optional, but I wanted just to make sure she was, still having fun and she still wanted to participate.
And had she said yes, would she have the opportunity to become a full member of the society?
Oh.
Objection, speculation.
Response?
Your Honor, we've established that this witness is the pledge master of Delta Omicron Delta and handles the pledge week activities as well as the initiation. This witness would have knowledge as to whether or not a pledge would have a full opportunity to be a full member without participating in the Fearsome Five.
Your Honor, if I may. The opposing counsel has stated, had she answered yes. In today's case, Emily Young did not say yes, and therefore Hunter Wilson would not know how Emily Young would have responded or how the Honor Society would have reacted to that response.
I think that the question, though, goes to if she had said no, so I'm going to allow it overrule.
Honest question here, Ms. Wilson. Had Emily Young said yes and opted out of playing the game, would she have the opportunity to become a full member of Delta Omicron Delta?
Of course she would. Her along with every single other pledge. These games are just a fun way for us to grow in our DOD family and learn about each other and learn about our history, and so that's why people participate. But if she had opted out, of course she would have had the same chance as every other pledge that might have participated.
No further questions at this time.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Wilson, I want to talk to you about your role and your responsibility as pledge master for Delta Omicron Delta.
Okay.
But before I begin, if at any point you don't understand my question or you need me to rephrase, please just let me know.
Thank you.
You were the pledge master for the Gulf Breeze chapter of Delta Omicron Delta, yes or no?
Yes, that is correct. It was such a privilege.
As the pledge master for Delta Omicron Delta, you were responsible for all of the pledge week activities, correct?
Yes, I was able to have the opportunity to help organize it and ensure everybody was having a great time.
Okay, I appreciate that, but drawing you back to my question, as pledge master, you were responsible for the pledge week activities, yes or no?
Like I said, yes, I was.
You were also responsible for all of the upcoming pledges, correct?
Yes, as the pledge master, I'm here to, be, like a big sibling to everyone, as well as all of our other members, but I really kind of oversee and like their own personal welcoming party.
Okay, you and Jordan Miller, you both sat in on the sessions that were required by the university pertaining to hazing.
Yes, we did.
And after you sat in on those sessions, you got into a disagreement with Jordan Miller, correct?
Well, yes, Jordan expressed some concern. That's correct.
Okay, let's talk about that. Jordan Miller, the DOD president, thought that the Fearsome Five was considered hazing. Yes or no?
Jordan had showed some concern, but never, stated that I wasn't or wasn't allowed to do it, but she did show some concern, and I took that into consideration, so I took it upon myself to call the office and let them know exactly what we were doing.
Okay, here's my point. Jordan Miller, the DOD president, she voiced some concerns, correct?
Object, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Response?
Your Honor, this is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, that being the statement was made. It's being offered for the effect, or rather the lack of effect, on the listener, that being Ms. Hunter-Wilson.
Your Honor, I believe this is an out-of-court statement made by a third party being offered for the truth of the matter, that Jordan Miller was in fact concerned. No effect on the listener has been shown.
All right. It is hearsay. She's already actually given the answer to that question, so overall.
I want to move on and talk to you about the multiple calls that you made to Gulf Breeze University. You called the university multiple times and you left a description of what the DOD was going to be doing. Yes or no?
Yes, I left a detailed description of every single step that we were doing for the event to be very clear on what we were doing.
And you never received a response from Gulf Breeze University, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Like I said earlier, they're very busy, but I never got a call saying that I wasn't allowed to do it. We've never had a problem in the past, so I assumed we were good.
Okay. You also never received a call that said, you're all good to go. You are all approved, ready to go.
Object, Your Honor. Question calls for hearsay.
Honor.
That's fine. Overall.
Could you please restate that?
You never received a call from the university saying you are all good to go. You are approved to go ahead with the Fearsome Five. Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct, but I felt if they had had a problem with it, they would have been on the phone in the click of a fingers telling me I wasn't allowed to, and of course, they're the boss and the head of all of our activities, and I would have totally cut it out to begin with.
Your Honor, objection, non-responsive. Move to strike everything after the yes.
No, overall. She's just explaining what her answer was.
Ms. Wilson, I want to now move on and talk to you about the Fearsome Five games themselves, all right?
Okay.
During the games, Emily and about 6 to 8 other pledges, they all were at one table, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We had a long table with everybody sitting around it.
Okay, and during the games, the pledges, they would have to answer trivia questions.
Yeah, we would ask them the trivia questions, and it's a really good way actually for them to learn about our history and the pledge verbatim, and so they can really, really, really be proud of being a part of our brilliant honor society.
Ms. Wilson, isn't it true that the questions were designed to be intentionally hard?
Well, yes, but that is, the pledges are new, so they're still learning all of our stuff, so, obviously it's going to be hard for them, but that's actually a way for them to learn about it, because, once they hear the question, they'll have that now imprinted into their brain, and they'll know the answer to it, so, they can go out and talk and say how brilliant our club is, and really do us proud.
Okay, my question was, the Fearsome Five questions, they were designed to be intentionally hard, yes or no?
Like I said, yes.
And because the questions were intentionally hard, everyone gets them wrong.
The majority of the time, yeah, everybody does get the wrong, because like I said, the pledges are new this year, and so they're still trying to learn all of our different histories and activities.
Let's talk about what happens when a pledge gets a question wrong. If a pledge gets a question wrong, they would have to go away from the table, do a burpee, and return to their spot and eat mystery food, correct?
Actually, that's incorrect. They did not have to do it. It was optional. If they, wanted to eat the food and if they wanted to do the burpee, up they went and they did it. But if they didn't want to do it, of course they didn't have to.
Okay, I appreciate that, but drawing you back to my original question. If the pledge got a question wrong, they would go away from the table, do a burpee, and eat the mystery food, correct?
Yes, if they volunteered to do so.
Okay, and during the games themselves, you claim that you made Emily a peanut-free brownie.
I absolutely 100% did. I did it with my own hands and I saw it with my own eyes. I went and I made my special batch for her and designated especially for Emily.
During round 4 of the Fearsome 5, every brownie, with the exception of the peanut-free brownie that you made for Emily, was a peanut-filled, mustard-covered brownie. Yes or no?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so on the table, Emily Young's peanut-free brownie. That brownie was surrounded by peanut-filled, mustard-covered brownies. Yes or no?
Yes, but like I said earlier, Emily was actually at the bottom of the table, so she had a little bit more separation from the other members that were a little bit closer together.
During the games, the pledges themselves, they were blindfolded, correct?
Yes, that's correct, but I was so fortunate to have such great and volunteering members of our society who helped the pledges and helped guide them from each step.
Okay, so because the pledges were blindfolded, they would go away from the table, do a burpee, and return to their plates while they were blindfolded, correct?
Yes, they would if they had volunteered to do so, while also being escorted by a member.
I want to now move on and talk to you about your claim that these activities were voluntary.
Okay.
The whole point of the Fearsome 5 was to weed out the weak pledges that wouldn't cut it in the DOD.
That's what we say, but that doesn't mean they have to do anything. Pledges that participate have just as much as a chance as those who don't participate. Just like my friend Ashton, actually. It's just a way to see who would like to play in them and who would not. There's no punishment if they don't want to volunteer and do it.
Okay, let's talk about what happened during the games themselves. During the 4th round of the Fearsome 5, Emily got up, walked away from the table, and told you that she needed to get inside the Delta Omicron Delta house.
Object, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
Your Honor, this statement is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. It's being offered to show the effect, or in this case, the lack of effect on the listener being Ms. Hunter Wilson.
Your Honor, I believe this testimony is in fact being offered to show the truth that Emily did ask to go inside the house, not the effect on Ms. Wilson.
Your Honor, if I may. This testimony, it is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, that being Emily Young asked this question. It is being offered to show the effect on the listener being Ms. Hunter Wilson, and how it caused her to act or not to act.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. I'll allow the testimony. The members of the jury are only to accept the testimony for the effect it had on the witness and not as substantive evidence of the statement.
Ms. Wilson, ask that again. During the games, Emily got up, she walked away from the table, and she told you that she needed to get inside the DOD house.
Yes, she started just to wander over by the house, but she didn't tell me why she wanted to go in. She just wandered off.
Okay, drawing you back to my question, she told you that she needed to get inside the house.
Object, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Sustain.
During that exchange that you had with Emily Young, her lips were swollen, correct?
No, not that I had seen. I mean, I just saw her walking away, and she said she had to get something. She didn't tell me why, I just saw her walking towards the house.
Okay, at that time, she was walking away from the table. Her face, it was rosy during the exchange that you had with her, correct?
It looked a little bit flush, but, we're here in Florida, and it is pretty hot. So I know myself, when I get a little bit warm, I get all rosy in my cheeks.
Okay, during your exchange that you had with Emily Young, she was also breathing very slowly, correct?
I didn't see that until later on. She was wandering off to the house. She seemed perfectly fine.
Well, she wasn't perfectly fine. Right after that...
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel testifying. Move to strike.
Sustained. Disregard the last statement of counsel.
Ms. Wilson, after that exchange, Emily Young, she walked away and she actually passed out, correct?
Actually, Emily was sitting in her chair and she had collapsed out of it, and at first I thought she was joking because Emily was known as being a jokester, but then I had walked over beside her and I really realised that she had passed out and she was breathing really, really slowly. Sorry. And I knew something was wrong.
Those were some of the last moments that you saw Emily Young alive.
That's correct. I was standing over by her side. I didn't want to leave her side. Like I said, she was like my little sister. When I saw something was wrong with her, I called for 911 to be called because I just knew that something was wrong. I'm sorry.
There will be no further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Wilson, during the Pearson 5 games, did the plates of brownies you made have name tags?
Yes, each name tag was laid out on the table, and Emily had hers as well as her specially marked plate.
Were there people there without blindfolds on?
Yeah, we had the different members who had volunteered to help us out, and they were there escorting them to and from to ensure that they would be okay.
And during the exchange discussed on cross-examination, did Emily appear to be sick?
No, she appeared to be having fun just like all of the other pledges, and she seemed fine.
If you'd known Emily was sick, would you have acted sooner?
Of course I would. I would have done anything I could have. If I had known something was wrong, I would have done anything. I would have done anything to help Emily not pass away.
No further questions this time, Your Honor.
You recross as to that.
No recross, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any additional witnesses from the defense?
Your Honor, this time the defense rests.
Say ready for closing.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, prior to the beginning of closing, I ask that the witness be excused.
Oh, sure, yes, I'm sorry. I just was concerned.
It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt. Now in this case, a 21-year-old girl is dead. And she's dead because of the defendant's deadly games. Now members of the jury, that's not fun, and that is not a game. That's a crime. And that's why we are here for 2 counts. One of manslaughter and one of hazing. Now as the judge will instruct you, we had a burden of proof in today's case, that being proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And as the judge will instruct you, a reasonable doubt is not a mere possible, forced, speculative, or imaginary doubt. A reasonable doubt is one to which you can attach a reasoned analysis. One based on all you've heard, the evidence, and your common sense. So let's look towards the cause of death as an example. Now the defense would like to have you believe that Miss Young died of an asthma attack instead of an anaphylactic reaction, despite the fact she had a known peanut allergy, despite the fact she had peanuts in her stomach, her esophagus, and her mouth at the time of death, despite the fact she suffered every single possible symptom of a peanut allergy. The defense? They propose that for some inexplicable reason on this particular day, these peanuts released absolutely no allergen in Miss Young's body, and that they had no effect. And instead, they proposed that this college track star, who specifically attended Gulf Breeze University on a track scholarship, with nothing wrong with her respiratory system at the time of death, they proposed she died after doing just a few burpees. Members of the jury, does that sound reasonable to you? Is that what you believe? With that being said, let's look towards the manslaughter charge in this case. Now, we needed to show that Hunter Wilson had a reckless disregard for Emily Young's safety, which ultimately resulted in her death. Now, it's absolutely undisputed in this case that Hunter Wilson was aware Emily had a peanut allergy, and she referred to her as her little sister throughout the course of her direct examination. So let's talk about how she took care of her little sister. Now, despite the fact she was aware she had a peanut allergy, she didn't ask Emily, "Hey Emily, how allergic are you to peanuts? Can you smell them? Can you touch them? Can you be near them?" She didn't ask her, "Hey Emily, do you want to have your medication on you just in case something goes wrong?" And she didn't even bother telling Emily that there would be peanuts on this table so she could make an informed decision about her safety. And to complicate matters, just to make things a little bit more fun, she chose to blindfold Emily so she couldn't see for herself. She knew how chaotic these games would be. She knew there would be pledges circled around a table, that they would be grabbing food, dropping, doing burpees again and again and again. But still, members of the jury, she chose to have peanuts on that table. And when she got up on that stand, all of a sudden, she was sad. She was remorseful. Because now it's her future. She wasn't worried about Emily Young's. She wasn't worried about Emily Young's peanuts future when she chose to put peanuts on that table. When she chose to play a deadly game. And in regards to hazing, we needed to show you that Hunter Wilson had a reckless disregard for Emily Young's physical or emotional well-being for the purposes of entertainment. Now you heard Hunter Wilson get up on that stand and tell you that these activities were meant to weed out who wouldn't and that while they say the activities are voluntary, she'd never seen a pledge opt-out be an issue. Members of the jury, all fun until someone gets hurt. Find the defendant guilty.
Thank you, counsel.
Thank you.
Defense, wish to give a closing?
Prior to beginning my closing argument, I'd like to read, pursuant to Rule 15 time limits, the prosecution must notify the judge before beginning closing arguments if any rebuttal time is required.
I understand. I'm well aware.
May it please the court, Your Honor?
You may proceed.
Counsel, members of the jury, just because there's a death, there's a crime. Does not mean there's a crime. This reminds me of the story of my late grandfather. One time, we sat down and we began to tell the story. And the further along that story got, the less truthful it became. So I had to stop when I was like, "Grandpa, that's not how the story really went." He took this as a teaching moment. He looked at me and said, "Son, you can't ever let the truth get in the way of a good story." Ladies and gentlemen, that's your duty as the jury, is to decide the truth in today's case from the good story. So let's review the evidence one last time. We heard from Jordan Miller, the president who took the court order of criminal immunity to come and testify. She could essentially say whatever she wanted today on the stand because she was not going to be prosecuted. heard from Sergeant Riley, the responding officer in today's case. Has a clear bias. Sergeant has a clear bias against Delta Omicron Delta because they accused him of cheating when he tried to become a member. Same sergeant who did not. Same sergeant who did not interview 4 people that night when he arrived on scene. The same sergeant who did not secure the scene until days later. We also heard from Dr. Sean Reed, a doctor who's been out of his residency. Dr. Sean Reed here. Dr. Sean Reed no doubt today has told you there's no doubt in his mind that Emily Young died of anaphylaxis. He didn't run either of the 2 tests. Run either of the 2 tests Dr. Martinez told you would give him a definitive answer. He was incomplete in his investigation. Just as Sergeant Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, the burden of proof in today's case lies solely on the state. It is the highest burden in our land. Is that beyond any reasonable doubt that you may find. You heard from a doctor with over 15 years of experience. Who told you, based on the investigation, we heard Sean Reed, she can't be certain that Emily Young died. But somehow the state wants you to believe that it was still anaphylaxis, despite the underlying health conditions, despite the family medical conditions that could have been present but weren't tested. We also heard from the emotional testing. This person came up here, waived her Fifth Amendment rights, to tell you how much Emily meant to she to tell you how she waived her right to make an entire batch of brownies just for you. Also heard from Ashley Davis. You also heard from Ashton out. Ashton opted out of the Pearson 5 games. Davis told you exactly that. Davis told you exactly that. One, you don't have to complete one pledge activity to become a full standing member of Delta Omicron. Once again, the state still wants to lead you to believe that you must complete the Fearsome 5. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with me, I have the jury instructions. The same jury instructions that have been provided to you. The same jury instructions that have been provided to you. The same jury instructions you get to take back with you. Now, the first count is that the state must prove that the culpable negligence of the defendant caused the death. Now, there's 2 sentences here that the state has neglected to use. 1, the defendant cannot be guilty of manslaughter if the act is merely negligent. And the explanation of culpable negligence is the negligent act of omission must have been committed with the utter disregard for human life. The hunter made an entire separate plate for Emily. That's reasonable doubt. And second is that of Hazy. The state had to prove you beyond a reasonable doubt that Emily was forced to eat those brownies by the defendant. Emily wasn't forced to do anything. Emily could have opted out at any time. Just because there's a death. Ladies and gentlemen, just because there's a death does not mean that there's a crime. I stand before you on behalf of Hunter Wilson and ask you to find the only just verdict in today's case and find the defendant not guilty.
Thank you, counsel.
Thank you.
Anything additional from the state?
Nothing further from the state, Your Honor.
Defense?
Nothing further from the state, Your Honor.
Well done.